Okay, let's talk some chess. We have a battle of heavyweights here. Bobby Fischer with the white pieces, Mikhail Tal with the black pieces. This game was played in 1961. Full game details are in the description below, and this is the lichess analysis board. So let's kick it off. Bobby plays e4, and Tal responds with the Sicilian with c5. Fischer brings his knight to f3, and Tal responds with his knight to c6. Fischer here goes with the open Sicilian, plays d4. This can obviously be taken by the black pawn on c5, but then you can take back because this square is attacked by both the knight and the queen, whereas black only has the knight on it. And that's exactly what happened. Tal takes on d4, and Fischer takes back with his knight. Here, Tal played e6, which, maybe not a very popular move in this position, and this allows Fischer to get his other knight out to c3. And Tal plays queen to c7, and this I think was kind of the start of the trouble for Tal. And the reason is because, well, we'll see. Fischer first plays this g3 move, which kind of seems like a weird, silly move, but we'll see the point of it in a moment. Fischer or Tal develops his other knight to f6, and now Fischer plays this really nice knight to c5 move. This is a good square for the knight. You're threatening, you're deep into black's position, and you're protected by the other knight. And what's especially nice is that this move comes with a tempo because the knight is now attacking the queen on c7. So Tal is forced to move his queen, and he retreats it to b7. The problem with this is that it allows Fischer to play bishop to f4, which was the reason for this g3 move. The bishop is now supported as it develops with an attack on the queen. So basically, because Tal kind of had his queen out and about, it allowed Fischer to develop two pieces for free, and the queen had to move or block and sort of waste development time for black while Fischer gets his pieces out in a good attacking position. So here, Tal can only block, so he blocks with the knight on e5, and Fischer doesn't take the knight yet. First, he develops his final minor piece with bishop to e2. Tal puts his bishop on c5. This is a nice square. It's attacking this f2 pawn, and now Fischer goes to the trade. Bishop takes on e5, and queen takes back on e5. But this allows another really nice kind of expansion move for Fischer, which is f4. And now you have this nice line of pawns, and you're obviously attacking the queen again. The queen has to move. Tal is sick of moving his queen. He puts it all the way back on b7, and Fischer just continues pushing his pawns with e5. And now you have this amazing chain of 4 pawns. The knight is attacked, so white, very pleasant position to play for white. Tal is sick of retreating, I guess, so he plays a6, attacking a knight of his own, and Fischer is happy to make the exchange here because now it allows Fischer to play f takes on g7, and this is now an extremely dangerous passed pawn. It's obviously attacking the rook, and Tal's only logical move is to play rook to g8, obviously getting in the way of the pawn and blocking it from promoting. So you would like to kind of keep this pawn on the board because it totally cramps black's position and it completely locks in black's bishop, but it doesn't seem like it's very easy to defend this pawn and make sure it doesn't get captured. So take a second and see if you can find a move that allows you to get a defense in place of this pawn. So hopefully you're thinking about getting the queen to d4 to sort of protect this pawn. Of course, this doesn't work because the bishop would take. But in the meantime, you can play, which is what Fischer played, knight to e4, and this forces the bishop to move away. From the diagonal here, Tal puts it on e7. Even if Tal kept on this diagonal, then the knight could come to f6, and this forks the king and the rook. And obviously, the king can't move to f8. The king would have to run, and then the knight takes the rook, and this is totally lost. So not only does the bishop have to move, but the bishop is forced to move to e7 to prevent the knight from coming to f6. And now you can play queen to d4, which protects the pawn. So now just a totally good position for white. Here, Tal tries a rook lift. He plays rook to a4. This obviously comes with an attack on the queen, and Fischer says, I don't care about that just yet. I'm going to play knight to e6 anyways, again forking the king and the rook, so this knight has to be taken, and the players exchange on f6. So now you have the queen in a very advanced position. It's threatening the king, it's protecting this pawn. It's really tough to get this queen out of here, so just a really nice couple of maneuvers by Fischer. Tal puts his queen, his often harangued queen on c7. This is a nice square because it attacks this c2 pawn, but Fischer just calmly castles queenside and now, protects the pawn with his king. This does allow Tal to play rook takes on a2, and this is a pretty scary, might be a scary position for white to be in. You have a great attacker, Tal, here, and he's, threatening this rook to a1 mate. You have the queen bearing down on the c file, but Fischer, cool as a cucumber, just plays king to b2 or king to b1, and now it's really tough to continue this attack. The king is attacking the rook, and you can't get a lot of support on the a file for the rook. It looks like you can play queen to b5, but then Fischer can respond with b4. The queen is attacked, and you don't have this rook to a1 check because white's queen now defends a1 because of the space left open by the white pawn. So that doesn't work anymore. Even if you kind of continue to try to advance, white just plays queen to c3, and this is totally fine for white. So tough to continue the attack. Instead, Tal just retreats his rook, puts it on a6, and gets it in line with white's queen. Fischer develops, or not develops, it was already developed, but he brings another piece into the attack with bishop takes on b5, gets rid of another pawn, and Tal says, go away, bishop, and the bishop goes away, and now Tal plays e5. So this is a nice move because it attacks, it threatens to break up white's pawn structure, but it also opens up a discovered attack on Fischer's queen. So Fischer plays a move here that I think many of us would play. The difference is that when we play f takes on e5, we are accidentally giving up our queen. We didn't see this discovered attack, but Fischer saw it, and Tal here happily takes the queen, and Fischer takes back. And it might look like this is a mistake on Fischer's end because you've just given up a queen for a rook, and yes, you do have these two pawns which are nicely advanced. But a rook for a queen is not a good trade. So this might seem like a mistake. But the whole idea here is that Tal's rook really has nowhere to go. It can't move to f8 or h8. It obviously can't take the pawn because now it's protected, and there's no way to stop this bishop to h7 and then bishop takes. So really, what Fischer did is he traded a queen for two rooks and some initiative, which is a totally fine trade to make. So Tal here kind of gets his queen to the center of the board with c5. Fischer takes, Fischer, I said bishop and Fischer as Fischer. Fischer takes with the bishop on h7, attacks the rook, nothing you can do, so the queen just comes to the g file to sort of try to pick off these pawns, and Fischer just takes the rook with the bishop. So now, if you look at the material, Fischer has two rooks for a queen, advantage white, both sides of a bishop, and white has, I think, three more pawns, including a very, very dangerous pass pawn. So this is totally, totally winning for white. Tal takes the pawn on f6, and Bobby brings his h rook to f1, obviously attacks the queen. Tal here is happy to get rid of this really nasty pass pawn on g7, but it also allows bishop check on f7. If you take with the queen, then you're just going to enter this completely winning endgame for white, where white has a bishop to a rook to a bishop and four pawns to two pawns, so that doesn't work at all. So Tal just tries to run away with the king, but then Fischer just brings his bishop to e6. This pawn is pinned. Not much you can do here. Tal gets his queen out of the potential fork, and Fischer takes with the bishop on d7. This looks like maybe not a good move because you just gave up bishop for a pawn, and black just takes back with the bishop. But now Fischer brings his rook to f7, and now there's no way to protect this bishop. You can't move it because it's pinned from the rook on d1, and if you try to stop this with maybe queen to h3, you can imagine takes, and this is after the king takes the rook, completely winning for white. You have four pawns to one pawn, so that doesn't work at all. So instead, Tal just takes a pawn, and Fischer takes with the rook on d7. The king is in check. White has three pawns to one pawn, although this pawn will fall very soon. And they played a couple of more moves. Fischer checked him a bit. Check. Eventually pushed his pawn, played check, took that pawn, and gets his rooks into the game. I'm not narrating because it's sort of just endgame stuff. And finally, in this position, when Fischer had 3 pawns and 2 rooks to a lonely queen and a totally open king. Tal resigned the game. So really fun game. A good lesson not to bring your queen out too early, because the other player can just develop their pieces and attack the queen. And then a nice queen sack in there when Fischer knew he'd get his material back. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.